thing.
Those, yeah, no, for LabsCon, but I think that shit's done. There's no way we
It's
survive
over.
this one.
It's over,
It's
man.
over.
Good morning, everyone. This is episode 65 of the Three Body Problem. I have with me, we finally reunited after a longish break. It felt like a longish break. 22 and I were at LabsCon all of last week doing our thing. I think a successful conference. While we were there, Costin, I don't know, man, such an overachiever. Got his second degree black belt in Taekwondo.
Holy shit.
And immediately left and went off to VB to attend the Virus Bulletin conference in Berlin. So now we're all back. LabsCon is done. The second degree black belt is done. VB is done. We're huddling again on a busy news week. But before we get into the news, let me just check in quickly. I saw you a lot, Juanito. Let me check in with Costin first.
Please.
Tell me about this black belt thingy. Like what's the end goal here?
What's the end? What do you want to know?
How many degrees do we?
Yeah,
How many degrees? Well, Donald Trump has 9, as far as I remember. But 9 is mostly like honorific. So in practice, the best of the best, they have like 8 done. But I think it takes 45 years to get that from the black belt all the way to the
I see.
to the 8th dan. So in my case, I think we are past that. Like it's unlikely, but I mean, a lot of people. I mean, there's I guess 5 million people in the world with a black belt in Taekwondo, but like the number who have the second degree is much smaller. So why not? Why not?
What does it mean? What does the
What does
second
it mean?
degree mean? It means that you've applied a certain level of discipline. It means you've practiced a certain level of things. Like, is there like an exam? What is the jump off point
Well,
to say I'm second that?
in other martial arts like jiu-jitsu, for instance, when you get the black belt, you've achieved the top, right? It takes like I don't know 10 years to get the black belt in Brazilian jiu-jitsu. One of our friends has it. A lot of people are training in that. In Taekwondo, you can get the black belt much faster. So, for instance, I got it in 5 years. If you're really good, maybe you can get it in 3.5. I mean, if you're serious, maybe you have some kind of previous martial arts experience, so you can get it faster. But in practice with Taekwondo, the real thing starts with the black belt. So that's like the beginning of the journey. You prove that you're capable to learn things and you have a certain moral compass, and you care about ethics, and you essentially respect your elders and so on and so on. So you're a good person and you're not going to misuse the things that you learn. So that's when the true learning begins. So like the deadly techniques, I don't know, the more dangerous techniques, they only get taught after the first degree black belt.
Right. You spend more time de-escalating than trying to get into a fight. I mean, that's
I mean, eventually, like this, like he says in Hero, like in Xiong with Jet Li, when you reach the ultimate perfection, you don't have to fight anymore. Like you can defeat your enemies by just saying one word.
Juanito, when are we gonna get you on the mat?
Never. My brand of autism
Are
is
we ever
very
going to
put
get
off
you on
by
the
sweating,
Camelback Mountain
discomfort,
for
any
an early
mild
morning hike?
kind of outsideness. I don't. No, I used to do different kinds of like martial arts stuff when I was much younger, and like kung fu, and eventually like boxing and stuff. But like I just can't like. At these days, I think there's a certain amount of energy that I have available, and I'm expending all of it from the neck up, and beyond that, there's very little room to exit the house in any way if I can help it.
Quick LabsCon recap. Obviously, I think you thought about it as a success. What was your, like, just a quick wrap up, quick highlights for you?
I mean, I do think it was a success, which might be self-serving, but what I'll say is I was really happy that the content was considered even better than previous ones, because what I could see was that the organization is getting easier. And I'll say, I mean, that's easy for me to say. You, Ryan, and Chris St. Myers, Courtney, Hagel, like you guys do all the hard work once we're there. So I wouldn't, I wouldn't know if it's actually getting easier or not. It just looks easier for me. But I think if we had kind of mediocre content or like okay content, then I would feel like, maybe the conference is in like we're at that point of the parabolic arc where like it's coming down and you're like, yeah, it's okay, it's a good con, but the content's not that great. Like it's very whatever. So it was nice to see that it was like people thought it was continuing to step up. Keynote day itself was fucking amazing. Like every talk was just absolutely phenomenal. And sadly, a lot of them were off the record. Hopefully, folks, maybe some folks will change their mind as we start to sort of go through some of the backlog of content. But um, really happy to see how the con has come together, how that community is coming together, how many people have like come through with collaborations and work from previous cons and things that there were folks there who were bringing in research, essentially asking other people to join, which I think is kind of
Mhm.
a really cool thing that's coming out of that environment where there's enough trust, right? Nothing's perfect, but there's enough trust about the people that are in the room that you see folks coming in with something that uh, just needs more data sources. It needs different kinds of expertise. Like Lindsay Freeman showing up with, we talked to her in our, short episodes during the con, and her coming in and saying, "Hey, look, this is this OSINT investigation, all this stuff we've got, but this is as far as we can get. If anybody else, what can folks do from here?" I think it's a very telling thing about what LabsCon itself has become of folks just kind of throwing something on the table and hoping that other experts will kind of come at it. So yeah, I'm very very happy to see it happen, and I'm happy that it's done. If that makes sense. Like I look forward to next year, but I could definitely use some time to like.
Decompress and yeah,
Well,
just
just it's
decompress and
time to
figure.
rethink my priorities. Like the most satisfying thing of next week is gonna be deleting everything on my calendar and reassessing what I should be doing with my time.
Oh yeah, yeah. Sounds like this man is very, very busy, Costin. Just before we move on from LabsCon, just to the audience, we have 3 short episodes up with Vizzy Stark. Juanito mentioned Lindsay Freeman talking about her work tracking Wagner war crimes on Telegram and so on. And then we had Aurora Johnson and Trevor Hilligos
Trevor
from
Hilgos,
from Spy
Spy
Cloud
Cloud.
talking about this Chinese internet toilet and some of like the com type activity that happens over there. And then of course Vizzy Stark came on and talked to us about the origins of the APT1 report and some of the lessons learned since then. Kind of a piggyback on that Kim Zetter article. So those are all in the podcast feeds. They're already also up on YouTube as well, so you can go catch those whenever you want to catch them. Costin, let's switch continents. You went to Virus Bulletin. It's one of the venerable old school anti-malware conference that's been around forever and ever. What's your give me a quick recap of things there.
So I realized that I've been going to this conference for 27 years. I mean, that many.
Yeah. Yeah.
They give you your
The last time Virus Bulletin was in Berlin was in like 2011. I spoke at that conference with on a panel with Miko, and I remember it fondly. I mean, and that was, you had already been an old school old timer then.
And there was another one in Berlin, like even I don't know, far back. I think it was the first time that I visited Berlin. For me, this was the second time that I visited Berlin. And there were like, first of all, there were so many disruptions. People's flights delayed.
Right.
Baggage is lost because of how they call it is a disruption with the IT services provider. Like what it is in reality is this ransomware attack with Heartbeat ransomware at Collins Aviation, which is the IT solutions provider. So many people again with problems. Even like when I left Berlin, going back home, the check-in machines didn't work. Like those machines that they used to verify your boarding pass when you board the plane didn't work.
And this was just yesterday.
Yesterday, absolutely. Like
so it's been like a full week though, because Juan, I remember when people were leaving LabsCon, they were everyone was all in sync with like this Brussels airport shutdown, how it was affecting the rest of Europe and so on. So it's been a long time in place, Costin. So you're saying yesterday it was still very disruptive.
Yesterday was it was a chaos. I mean, I've never seen. I was thinking like, wow, Germany. I've never seen anything like this in Germany before. Like there's this German order. I don't know what.
Discipline,
Everything
right?
was
Yeah.
total chaos. Like we stayed maybe more than 1 hour in the queue for security check, and it was like a total chaos. There were like no lines, people crossing in front of you. You were packed like
In Germany?
sardines in Germany, like packed
Oh,
like sardines, super hot. Like some, like I don't know, someone. Oh, I think they peed themselves in the queue. It was unbelievable. Believe, like trust me. So yeah, many people got their baggages lost and whatever. So it was pretty disruptive. But I mean, otherwise, the conference was as good as always. It was
You're a
at
big
the
fan of Virus
JW
Bulletin.
Marriott. I am a big fan because, well, honestly, it's a chance for me to see my old friends, people that I know since VB 1998 in Munich. That was like my first time outside Romania, pretty much. The
wow.
first time that I got a visa, like a German visa. You needed a visa to travel outside. So yeah, that's when I met like Miko for the first time, and Pierre Kauerbach, who used to own H plus BDV, now was renamed to Avira, and many other great people. So it's good to see your good old friends, but there's also a new generation of younger researchers who get to present and talk about interesting stuff, if you ask me. And some of the presentations even had IOCs.
Oi.
Oh.
Respect to those who embedded like a lot of new IOCs in the slides, hashes, domains. So, for instance, there was one about sandworm supply chain attacks that abuses ESET pirate copies. A lot of IOCs in that one.
Nice. What's the protocol for dropping IOCs from stage? Are we okay with a QR code, or we just like a short URL? What is the protocol? Do you mind
You
if I
read them
print
out
it on a
loud.
piece of paper and
I
distribute it?
write. Well, if you can take photos, I take photos. If photos are not allowed, I write them down with the pen. And then, if you're lucky, I mean, this is probably the only time when MD5s are better than SHA-1s, better than
That's right.
SHA-256, because they're shorter.
Uh,
That's right.
so successful conference for you. VB for me has always been a very like niche certain group, and you know the European scene is a little different as well. So it's always been like an interesting place to meet the old folks. I know you mentioned a lot of the newcomers coming up. I saw Stefan Tanasi, our old
Mhm.
friend, on the agenda there. What was like your favorite talk from the conference from one of
Mm.
these new folks? Give one of these new folks a shout out.
Well, I'll shout out to Alex Turing from I think it's from Tianjin, who spoke about the void botnet. He had a lot of IOCs in the slides,
Oi,
and
you love
very
that.
cool. I love that, and honestly, he's a very good presenter. So I really enjoyed the presentation. Obviously, they have some blogs up about the void botnet, like 1.5 million Android devices infected with this, can be used for all sorts of things. But with DGA and like, yeah, probably pre-installed on some kind of Chinese brand TV sets, it comes pre-installed, the malware. And their tracking of the different generations and their algorithms, to me, was super interesting. Was a cool talk. um, Also, who else? Anna Fo had a cool talk as well, that I already mentioned, the talk about the sandworm supply chain attack. There was also an interesting talk from a group of South Korean researchers who spoke about using code similarity in IoT malware, like applying, first of all, decompilation, and then applying LLMs to that, and then applying their hashes and similarity algorithms to track the evolution of IoT malware. So that was also, in my opinion, was interesting to watch. But even, of course, Stefan had a very cool talk about Pepsi Dog, which is not publicly known, as far as I
Tanase?
know. NASA AI was TLP red, so no photos allowed, no tweeting, tagging, whatever. But I thought that was quite interesting as well. So honestly, there were a lot of very good talks this time at VB.
Fantastic. It's always nice to have talks from those places where we rarely hear from Chinese researchers, South Korean researchers, and so on. Whenever you get a bit of research out there, it feels like a breath of fresh air because we're so used to Americans reporting on China or Russia. I know Juanito feels the same way. Let's pivot to the news quickly because we got a lot to get to there. At least two big stories related to China. First thing this week, CNN had a story out, a Chinese hacker that breached legal firms and were doing cyber intelligence related directly to the trade talks, the tariff trade talks. It's the inference was that Chinese hackers had broken into the companies that were handling the negotiations and were able to see advance in those negotiations. And in parallel, Google Threat Intelligence Group dropped a research report documenting BRICKSTORM malware activity used to gain persistent access to victim organizations across it too. Juanito, they're related, right? The public
that's my
reporting.
Understanding.
What
I'm
can
saying
you
that's
tell
my
me about?
understanding because there's so many fucking things happening with Chinese groups at the same time that when we kick off with the news article, I mean the news article itself isn't super clear about which of the Chinese ones, but I'm pretty sure it is related to this BRICKSTORM thing.
What is BRICKSTORM?
I mean, that's an excellent question. So BRICKSTORM is BRICKSTORM specifically is this backdoor, this SOX proxy Go backdoor that is being deployed by some UNC whose number I can't remember off the top of my head. What's interesting is that these dudes are obviously hitting appliances as we're kind of used to, and then they're sort of pivoting to all these like vSphere, vCenter hypervisors, and from there extracting information from clones of certain VMs. So they're skipping past all the security appliances as you can, all the security software as you can expect, and having a wonderful time of it. I wish that this could be sort of like the centerpiece of this week, but considering the other Chinese thing that's also kicking off, like this was the cool thing that had come out up until the Cisco ASA thing also popped off.
And
yeah, that was the cool thing on
Thursday
Tuesday and Thursday happened.
But let's stick with this one because
5221, I think.
5221, suspected China Nexus threat clusters that employ sophisticated capabilities.
Not the same as Salt Typhoon, they made clear themselves, right?
Including the exploitation of zero-day vulnerabilities targeting network appliances. So it's pretty a group that they've been watching in a while. Mandiant also shipped this BRICKSTORM scanner to hunt for BRICKSTORM activity. I retweeted it and I saw a lot of interest in folks going here. Costin, for some reason, like we hear about these Chinese people pop in these network devices and getting into it, but for some reason BRICKSTORM stands out as something a little different and a little more serious to me. Is that your read as well?
First of all, why do you think it stands out? Like what attracts your attention?
The number of folks actively running around with their hair on fire, scrambling to scan and look for this thing. Like to me, like this shit is once a week I hear about something like this. This one feels different.
Like it's
is
different,
it because it's related to the tariff, a legal firm that got popped? I don't know. Why does this one feel so different?
That's a good question. And by the way, I think it's important to say that there's another very good analysis of BRICKSTORM. It was published in April by NViso. So immediately when I saw this, what's new here? So I think that one of the most interesting kind of details in this story is how the threat actor leverages this backdoor and other tools together to communicate between virtual machines and the hypervisor. So just to give you an example, let's say that one of your, important projects in your company, like some resource planning software or whatever runs in a virtual machine. So let's say then the threat actors manage to infect that virtual machine, and then they start beaming out to the CNC. If you monitor that machine, you're likely to catch the exfiltration. So one of the techniques this group is using, for instance, they tunnel from the virtual machine into the hypervisor directly, and the hypervisor tunnels into the CNC. So let's say from the virtual machine, there's no network communication with the command and control server, which makes it more stealthy, harder to detect, harder to spot, which in a way is kind of the whole characteristics of this group. They focus on maintaining this long-term stealthiness, meaning that they could be actually in your systems for a very long period of time without you knowing. And I think this was also what Mandiant highlighted here, that the threat actors, they've been in the systems when they get caught for over a year, which is quite unusual. Like typically the amount of time that a threat actor is active in a network is way below 9 months, right? Something like that.
Yeah,
And
393 days on average. I think
that's unusual. Yeah, this is super unusual. It
right,
means that they are way more stealthy than the average.
And the point Mandiant made as well is that log retention policies sometimes do not go this long for 393 days, so you never could trace back and find the initial infection vector. So that also mucks up all these investigations and so on. Juanito, you mentioned this like very, very specific focus on evading EDR tools and any sort of security telemetry that might be on the box. This is new, or this is always in place in these types of campaigns?
I think I don't know whether to say new or not. I think it's notable. And what I'm going to say is when you think about it from a tradecraft perspective, what's interesting about it is not whether the individual pieces or individual techniques are new, but rather that you are disciplined enough to stick with this and not jump off of the point of low visibility. Because what would usually happen is with the earlier attacks on some of these network appliances, you would get in, nobody could see you there. You might go to vSphere, nobody could see you there. Then you would grab some stuff, and then you would jump into an endpoint, and somebody could see you there. So like eventually you would kind of like let the plot kind of let go of the plot and eventually sort of get into the more visible space, and someone would eventually kind of catch you there, and they may not know what the initial infection vector was. They may be able to figure out how you were pivoting, but essentially it meant that you would eventually land. With some of these, what you end up, part of that extended, like when you're saying 393 days on average, you're telling me that some of these infections went on for 2 fucking years without anybody noticing you were there. And that's not, I don't think that's just coincidental. I think if you happen to be this disciplined and careful about what you're doing, and you are sticking to those like hugging the wall spots of like not being seen by any security software, telemetry generation, etc., then we can have a different conversation about this being notable in the fact that it's not new, but you are disciplined enough to maintain your tradecraft over 2 years in a way that is clearly paying off. And I wish this was the only one and we could just focus on this one and say, wow, this is amazing. This is so special that this is happening. Wow, the Chinese have some A team here, and it's not compared to some of the other ones. But considering the bigger story this week, it's hard for me not to look at these things and go, you know what? China has stepped up to a point where we are genuinely getting categorically fucked by the Chinese in their capabilities. Like I can't do that thing where I go, well, you've got the US, the UK, Israel, all of them operating over here, and China somewhere down there. Like there's tons of them. There tons of APTs out of China. They're doing a bunch of stuff, but they're not that great. I don't think we can have that conversation anymore. I think this is something like this BRICKSTORM just being another drop in the bucket next to your Salt Typhoon, next to your storm. What was the? God, I fucking hate these numbers. Storm 1849?
49?
Okay. I don't know. My point is, like, it's a a swarm of groups, all of whom are operating in this like blind spot way. That is sophistication. That is tradecraft. That isn't just coincidentally happening. The Chinese have stepped up, and this shouldn't seem like news, but I think it's, if anything, um, I need to change the way that I talk about these countries. Like we need to change the Gartner Magic Quadrant of threat actors to reflect the fact that the Chinese are operating in a different square now.
Well, let me play conspiracy Ryan here and throw a question to Kostian. 5-6 years ago, this was Russia, 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 Russia. Not true?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Isn't that true?
Yes. And what's your question?
The question is like,
Now it's China, China, China.
now it's China, China, China. Are you questioning why we're hearing all this noise now and why it's only China, 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 and where did Russia disappear to?
I think there's two things here. That there's an issue of perception, which is a perception of what is going on, and probably on a US centric point of view, at the moment, China has kind of higher priority than Russia. Outside the world, I don't know, notably in Europe, to be honest, if you ask me, Russia has a higher priority. So if you look for purely from a perception point of view, I think for US, China is definitely higher in the tops.
And that's
But
because the
if,
war is on your doorstep and you're kind of feeling the
yeah, and
effects.
there's a
It's in
lot of
their
hybrid
news. Yeah, yeah.
actions, right? There's a lot of hybrid actions going on. Just a few days ago, the Dutch arrested some teenagers who are allegedly working for Russia, doing Wi-Fi scanner attacks, like walking near sensitive places and trying to capture the Wi-Fi traffic, according to the prosecutors. So there's a lot of hybrid attacks combining that, and of course, then there's drones. The mysterious drones are back this time in Denmark. They're seen also in France, I think, a lot of Nordic countries, and nobody can tell for sure if they're Russian drones, so if they are not Russian drones. What I can tell you for sure that Russian drones are flying through Poland, they're flying through Romania, and there's like a lot of things which are unclear. Like, should we actually shoot them down? Do we actually need to shoot them down? Is it feasible or is it cost effective? Just to give you an example, Romania, if they wanted to shut down one of these Russian drones with a Sidewinder missile, Romania, one Sidewinder missile actually cost $400,000, and Romania has 21 of them. So if they wanted to shoot down one of these Russian drones flying through Romania, they would have to waste one of the 21 missiles that the country actually owns. So I don't know, man. It could be also a problem of perception, but also like geographical focus. And it could be that for the states at the moment, China is way up. You know, the conflict is Indian. I mean, if you summarize and look at all the big guys out there like Ray Dalio, they're all saying pretty much that the next big fight for the world domination will be or is actually between the US and China. And Russia is just a smaller player there.
It's interesting because I remember when we started doing this podcast, Juanito could not care less about China. And then slowly over time, he became China is kicking our ass to China con, China con, China con, China con to, oh my God, like they're really, really kicking our asses, right? So I've seen this evolution of like more interest in, is it geopolitical leanings here, Juan, or are you just going on the technical characteristics of what you're seeing?
I think it's a bit of all of the above, right? To be completely fair, right? Like there's no point pretending that it's only the technical stuff, right? Like China has clearly taken precedence from a geopolitical standpoint. It matters a lot more than it used to. At the same time, I think I would also point out that it's not just China stepping up comparative to Russia, but I think inevitably Russia stepping down in capabilities, as you would, you could only reasonably expect of a place that's facing this level of brain drain, lack of resources, being in a protracted war, being turned into a bit of like a pariah on the world stage. Of course, they're not going to be playing at the same capabilities that they were before. And similarly, they're kind of pigeonholed into kind of a predictable fashion, right? Like the Russians are still doing some interesting shit. They're mostly doing it in Ukraine, some of it in Europe and the US. But I think it's quite easy to get sort of a so what kind of factor to something that's been going on, like the Russia-Ukraine war for so long, where you're like, yeah, we know, we know, we expect it, it's there. Um, uh, that said, there is definitely a shift in Chinese capabilities, and there's a shift in our awareness of how those Chinese capabilities are being employed in the US. And I do think that we need to feel a certain amount of shame in this country to the level to which the Chinese are not just sort of penetrating the space, but kind of orchestrating it with impunity to some degree, right? Like we keep going back to this Salt Typhoon thing, and it's like it's not about the vagaries of Salt Typhoon. It's not about the fact that they hit telcos themselves. It's more that what we find out with Salt Typhoon is that the Chinese had orchestrated almost like a local SIGINT capability through US telcos, and done so for any meaningful number of time, hitting some of the most important, most protected people in the United States. And that's one operation of theirs. And it wasn't the only one. It wasn't like, oh, you hit we hit the crown jewels of the Chinese. We found it. Yay. It's like we did it. No, it's one of many. And I think it's sort of an illustration that between that and like the insane preponderance of um, FBI catching different types of like human operations the Chinese are doing in the US, and the comparative lack of intelligence networks that the US has in China, supposedly. And there's so many different ways in which, if you look at the contest right now, to the extent that we can see it as civilians, the Chinese are not some two-bit backwater shop. They are playing the way a superpower plays. They're all over the fucking place. And I think that there's a necessary adapting of our thinking, where I don't know that if there are any listeners in China. I don't know that that to them that this is big news, but I think in the US there is a need to kind of adapt some of our post First Cold War thinking away from thinking about China as if it's just another one, and instead to actually put them in that superpower league of saying, yeah, I mean it's not just a sizable threat, but I don't really know that we know what the fuck to do about it.
I can't shake the feeling that there's a lot of amazing Russian, when I say amazing in the context of sophistication and technical brilliance, Russian stuff happening in Ukraine that we have no visibility on. Like just off the top of my head, I remember the signal thing, and then the actual tapping into supply chains to actually take over cameras to see weapons moving over supply chain things. So there were some pretty interesting things coming out of like the Russian visibility sector, but not much as it relates to all this stuff on China. Is it because, Costin, you think we just don't have visibility into fully what's happening there, or our interests are different, or you disagree with me that it seems like much more is happening there that we have no visibility on?
I mean, look, if you watch the Ukrainian CERT website and what they're publishing, it's obvious there's a lot of activity going on.
But that's
There's
all
a
we're
lot of
getting. That's
Russian.
the point I'm trying to make, right? That's the only access.
The
That's
only source?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess they have the best visibility, and they publish about a lot of different things, and companies are kind of slow to pick up on those, but every now and then you see a security company, be it, I don't know, Harfang Lab or Record the Future or whoever, just pick on a Ukrainian CERT blog with the IOCs, and then they expand with their visibility, and they, uncover basically a lot more.
There's a lot of meat
more
on the bones
infrastructure
there for research labs to go
there
pick on,
is.
right? Yeah.
There is also, truth be told, many of those blogs are in Ukrainian language only, so you need to
Come on.
translate them, which
This
is
is
of
2
course
clicks.
is doable.
Yeah.
It's 2 clicks. It's 2 clicks. But I'll tell you a secret: when you translate the blogs with I don't know, in your browser, in your favorite browser, it kind of breaks some of the IOCs. It breaks the hash lines and things like that. So you need, at least I can tell you from my experience, you harvest the IOCs from the Ukrainian blog and then you translate it, and they'll be fine.
What about
So,
using your favorite Gen AI tool for the
which is
translation plus
Mistral, right?
extraction?
Mistral le chat. uh, yeah, it's
Like
feasible
who's using
up to
browser
some
versus
point.
using an AI tool?
That's
How
I
the
think a
world
lot
has
of people.
changed.
A lot of people.
That Ryan would say that. You're like, well, who isn't using this stuff,
It's
right?
true.
Yeah.
It's true.
Still, I tell you, a lot of people are using the browser still to harvest, I don't know, test, read all these blogs, in addition to all this automation. But I tell you one thing that I've been thinking for a long time. I mean, if you look at all the big discoveries that we've seen over the years, I mean, the truly sophisticated things, the amazing things that have been written about, with virtual file systems, with Lua, with I don't know, exploiting drivers to load things in kernel mode, which implement some crazy man-in-the-middle attacks at network level to, I don't know, hijack Windows update, things like that. So if you think about all that, there's a lot of Western things, obviously, that have been written about. Then there's, of course, Turla with their famous snake rootkit that unfortunately we don't see that often nowadays. It seems that this kind of lost art of sophisticated rootkits is maybe kind of fading away. But with China, I'm still like I'm struggling very hard to find one thing that you look at it and you say, "Whoa, this is mind blowing." And kind of struggling. There's a lot of these smaller UNCs and different operations that you see, and the web shells and the China chopper, and then the VPNs they're using, and all these like kind of modular malware platforms like ShadowPad or PlugX, extended versions, big PlugX, and so on. But still, I'm kind of struggling to find one that matches the complexity and makes you, just stand in awe and say, "Whoa, this is incredible." So I don't know if that doesn't exist yet, or maybe nobody has found it yet. But like, well, yeah, if you want to disagree with me, disagree. Tell me what is that
Um,
amazing Chinese platform that
I'm
we
not
haven't seen yet.
I'm not disagreeing. I don't think that they approach these things from a platform stand the way that we're used to with some of the more sort of programmatic, um, well-developed nations where you get these big shared things. Instead, it's to me, it's more about the operations as a whole. And I think whatever cool programmatic stuff is happening is likely on the back end. It's more about dealing with like the embarrassment of riches that these dudes are sort of pulling off. You're grabbing tens of terabytes worth of stuff. What are you doing with it to make it sort of useful, valuable, deconflicted, to deduplicate it? Like the if anything, uh, the implied big data problem behind these Chinese operations is already a sign of their success and more about like sort of a next stage of what happens with these things. But I would say when you look at something like this Cisco ASA shit show, um, some of the really interesting stuff that's happening is precisely in the don't get caught instrumenting of ops where they're happening for years on end. They're not visible. The American companies that are supposed to be supporting these things are actually making them worse, like legitimately hiding the operations themselves from view. And it's a larger kind of success, and I don't think that it's built on saying, hey, here's this 5-year running multi-stage mega espionage platform. It's more about the ops in the
The
way that they're being
mission,
conducted.
yeah, and the mission is being accomplished. I mean, at the end of
Right.
it, you own all these routers and all these things. I mean, you don't need these big fancy modular platforms, lower modular platforms. I mean,
I mean, I
costing
want
from
them
the
to use
intellectual
them.
angle, you want to see them, right?
I want to see them.
I think it's a matter of planning things ahead on one hand. The other thing is that all these different cyber espionage operations are multidimensional, and one dimension is like you were saying, mission oriented. Like we need to get the things out as soon as possible, and we don't really care about what happens tomorrow, in the sense that whoever comes after me or whoever will steal the next thing tomorrow, it's their problem, not my problem.
Smash and grab,
So
right?
so that's like one dimensionality of the issue. But the other thing which I simply cannot ignore is that China is one of the nations which have famously planned in advance, I don't know, for thousands of years, like hundreds of years, like one people under one sky kind of thinking, Tiansha, as it is in the movie Hero with
Jet Li.
Jet Li. Yeah,
Your
like
favorite.
it is my favorite
good movie.
because you learn so much about China by watching that movie. Like the moment that you understand that movie, then you understand the whole philosophy and the thousands of years and kind of the vision and where all this is going. And
This
of
guy's trying to
course,
get me to watch a Barbie movie, and this guy's trying to get me to
Watch the
watch
fucking
Jet Li.
Barbie movie.
What Barbie?
Great.
The Barbie movie?
Yeah,
Look,
great movie.
I
Great
can
movie.
give you one advice. Like you need to watch the Barbie movie and Oppenheimer, because I think they're strictly and very tightly connected to each other. But if you first watch
Yeah.
Oppenheimer and then you watch Barbie, it's a disaster.
It's
They're
the wrong
ruined.
order.
But if you first watch Barbie and then you watch Oppenheimer, then
Wait,
it's fine. I think it's
Yeah.
fine. But if you first watch Oppenheimer, then Barbie means nothing. It's like zero. On the IMDb scale of movies is somewhere between 0 and 0.1.
Sorry for sidetracking you.
about-
You were making a point about the Chinese thinking in thousands of years. You feel like there's something missing
Which I
here?
feel, yeah, I was talking about the multidimensionality of their operations and thinking. And on one hand, I think that the thing that is missing is this planning of sophisticated platforms. And let's just take a look at routers, for instance. If you just think about some of the famous router malware that we have seen connected to sophisticated operations, and here I'm talking about router malware that people were just unable to get out of the router because there was like no way to dump the memory, and they had to use 0 days to dump the memory from there and send it to Argentina to get it analyzed and to have reports of what is the purpose of that router malware. And things like the tool set running on these routers, just looking at internet packets and extracting some fields from the packet, applying public key decryption with 256 keys for nobody but us kind of technique. So that's, I think, the high end of known router malware. But then when you look at some of these things that we are seeing or talking about here, they feel that they're like ages. It's like about 20 years behind those technologies. But at the same time, um, in terms of achieving the goals, it feels like there's comparable results coming out from both directions, in the sense that the Chinese operations achieve similar, if not, let's say, better results with these lower end or lower key tool sets than the super sophisticated multi-million dollars tool sets that we have seen in the past, you know, all over in interesting things. And it makes me wonder if nowadays you simply don't need those sophisticated tool sets anymore, and you can achieve the same with less. And actually, it may be preferred not to build those sophisticated things anymore, but try to rely on simpler tools like scripts you can build with the LLMs overnight and just drop them in there. And if you're just a little bit careful, not too much, with stealthness, then you can survive to 393 days in average without getting discovered and being able to capture and collect all that sensitive information.
How much of that is platform specific? Because what I'll say is, for all the shit that Microsoft has gotten over the years for Windows being sort of this like security Swiss cheese, um, what you have is an evolution of the platform, the OS itself, getting eventually starting to get a lot of security stuff baked into it, and then this sort of everyone in the zoo kind of mentality to security products, right? So you walk into one Target and like Sophos is in there. You walk into a different enterprise and CrowdStrike's in there. You walk into another one, Kaspersky, then McAfee, then Sentinel One. Like you've got all these different types of security tooling present on top of an evolving platform that has now made it so like there is a very active cat and mouse game. There is iteration between them, and that means that you have to develop these multi-stage things and you have to come up with these different ways of being evasive, not just of one type of security mechanism but of a variety of security mechanisms, right? Like you look at the old Flame, and part of those 20 megabytes is, how are we going to change our file naming convention depending on which security product is in here, right? Like there's a lot of differences that are required due to the variance in the ecosystem itself. But if we're talking routers and appliances, I think the real issue we deal like just to finish that comparison, when we look, um, let's focus on the equation group tooling, right? You have a variety of these insane platforms that the equation group was developing primarily on Windows, but we know how we know how they're built generally, and there's some multi-platform approach to it. But the only OS X version that we found at any point was 6 years old, developed for like 4 versions before of Mac OS, and it didn't fucking matter. The thing ran, the thing was fine, the thing didn't need updating, the thing didn't need changing. And at that point, what it suggests to me is like it's not about endpoint versus router, it's just about Windows being this hotly contested space versus Mac OS, not, at least at the time, not having been a very contested space as far as security goes. And similarly, now we're talking about router implants and appliance implants. And for the most part, there has been no need, right? Like most routers are garbage on security. If you're talking backbone routers, your bigger concern is you don't want to brick the thing, you don't want to cause disruptions, right? Like that's where you don't want to get caught. But there isn't really a fight on security where you're walking into an ecosystem and you go, oh shit, like we're gonna have to keep updating this thing every 6 weeks, and we need to be careful about who comes on board. Nobody's touching this thing because they don't want it to fall apart. And now with the appliance vendors, what has changed is not that they're more secure in any way. Like the appliance vendors don't seem interested in security proactively at all. But what has changed is an awareness on the victim side where they're more likely to either get called by somebody or to call someone in and say, hey, something is wrong with this fucking thing. I don't know. The thing itself is not going to show me. I need you to come investigate it. And what do we see immediate? Like if we pivot from this BRICKSTORM to the Cisco ASA, new
Let's do it.
ArcaneDoor version of
Introduce it.
things, you're talking about a very different type of op, right? And a
Yeah,
very
let me
different type of
introduce it
toolkit.
quickly.
Go.
Cisco dropped a big bomb later in the week, confirming some firewall attacks from May 2025. There, so this has been going on May, June, July, August, a couple of months here. Was engaged with multiple government agencies, incident response services, to investigate attacks against certain Cisco, and Juanito says ASA, adaptive security appliance 5500X series devices that were running the Cisco Secure Firewall ASA software with VPN web services enabled. malware implantation. Alongside that, we had the NCSC, the UK NCSC drop a report pointing out the use of a multi-stage bootkit that facilitated the deployment of additional malware onto the Cisco ASA devices. Seems to be one of the big sophisticated ones that that Costin says we've been missing. Juanito, why does this stand out as the biggest story to you?
I mean, first of all, I think there's a couple of different aspects to this story that matter. There's the operation, which is no joke, cool shit, super interesting bootkit on these appliances. And there's a lot that I want us to discuss there. Then there's the way Cisco is handling this thing, which has people furious. And, this is where I kind of have to start splitting hairs and parsing terms because I love my friends at Talos. But I don't think Talos is in. I'm guessing, without talking to anybody, I am guessing that Talos has nothing to do with this. This looks like it's big Cisco doing big Cisco things because the way they're handling it is not pretty. It's not smart. It's not nice. It's not good for the security community. So
what aren't they doing? Wait a second. You can't just gloss over that. When you say they're being not okay in Costin's book, what is
okay.
happening?
I'm sneaking over to Costin's book and I'm writing Cisco and in there as not okay. Well, so first,
what isn't happening?
Okay, so Cisco comes out on a Thursday afternoon with a press briefing about this thing. This vulnerability. They don't mention the malware in their advisory at all. If you look at some of the vulnerabilities that are listed as part of this like Cisco TAC thing, the Technical Assistance Center stuff, some of these vulnerabilities which are discovered during TAC incident response cases are described as not being attacked in the I'm trying to find, I need to look up the exact language. Cisco PCERT is not aware of any public announcements or malicious use of the vulnerability that's described in this advisory. And then in the source, this vulnerability was found during the resolution of a Cisco Technical Assistance Center support case. So we found it in the wild, but we're not aware of any uses of it in the wild. The kind of shit that just like makes us have a fucking aneurysm. And similarly, like you look at the Cisco reporting now, and all they basically tell us is that this is related to ArcaneDoor, which Talos had reported on before, but they don't mention the malware at all. So actually, the fact that we have a really, really good report of this is from our friends at the NCSC in the UK, and not anything to do with Cisco themselves. So,
and what do we want? What is the demand for Cisco to do?
Well,
release samples, release IOCs, release Yara rules. Like, is that the ask?
They have the talent, and they are one of the few. They are the only appliance company that has the talent to do the incident response and to do the threat intel analysis on it and to publish it on it. And my assumption here is, look, Cisco is caught between a rock and a hard place. I will give them that. As a company, I think they are one of the key companies that is being held hostage by Chinese manufacturing, and they're terrified of talking about anything that's going to piss off the Chinese, even when it's clearly causing them all kinds of heartache with their actual, customer base.
You think that's at play here? You really do?
I'm dead certain that that's at play here. I'm sure that that's a part of it because it's not for a lack of resources. And I'm sure, you've got infighting and you might have, the VP of whatever on one side who doesn't want the VP of whatever on the other side to get any credit. And sure, have fun. But in this particular case, when you're telling me that the US government, like CISA, has to come out and basically say, go update or rip out any of these appliances, and Cisco being the vendor par excellence on the other side of the aisle compared to Huawei, right? Like if you have it's such a thing as a US national champion for firewalls, appliances, and VPNs, it's Cisco. And the fact that they don't give a shit that their customers are getting sort of ransacked by the Chinese because they don't, they seem to not want to upset the Chinese government. I'm assuming that's on the basis of manufacturing, but y'all can explain to me what else is going on over there. In that same vein, the other thing that I've heard, and I've not been able to confirm it, but I'm hearing about like Cisco support people calling up customers to tell them to update ASAP. But what they're not saying is if they run those updates, they're disinfecting, like they're removing any indications as to whether they were infected in the first place. So you look at that and you go, I'm really I'm trying. I wanna
Costin, don't let him
say
get
that
fired. Don't
I
let him
want
get
to
fired.
say that you're doing this because you fucking care about your customers, but on some level, boy, are you helping the attackers as you do this thing. And I don't know what the fuck to do. I don't know how we look at an incident like this one. Look, whenever judgment comes relative to the capabilities of the folks that we're talking to. Fortinet, Ivanti, all these garbage, Pulse Secure appliance vendors. At the end of the day, you can say they have a threat intel team, they don't have a threat intel team, they have security awareness, they don't. They're just some big PE firm that bought a bunch of garbage and shoved it all together.
You hold Cisco to a higher standard.
I hold Cisco to a way higher
standard. Right.
I hold Cisco to the highest standard as far as appliances go, because as far as I'm aware, they also hold themselves to the highest standard when it comes to their fucking pricing strategy. So presumably, if I'm buying the most expensive thing from the best producer, I would expect a different level of awareness, capability, and even just support, right? Like the fact that they're locking these things down in a way where I need to call this TAC and I need to get the PCERT involved and they're going to come do a thing. And presumably it's under NDA, but also it's going to be used for bullshit advisories like this, where you're going to lie through your teeth at everybody else that's consuming from your products. That is not premium as far as I'm concerned. That is not sort of what you're supposedly paying for. And in this particular case, it's not even like we're talking about the researchers being skittish and pissy and saying, oh, but there's this malware. No, you're telling me that there's this in-memory thing that a year ago, in April of 2024, was residing in memory in the same fucking process, in the same Lena part of the, kernel or whatever. And then in September of 2025, we not only find a similar component in the same place, but it's being loaded by a bootkit. And all you can tell me is, don't worry about it. That's because they didn't have secure boot. The new ones have secure boot, so we're fine.
I don't think no one is saying we're fine.
I mean, I think Cisco's saying we're fine. I think Cisco's saying we're fine.
Couple of
I
things.
Can't.
Couple of characteristics about this attack I want to bring attention to. And I want to start. You mentioned ArcaneDoor. Costian, Cisco assesses with high confidence that this new activity is related to the same threat actor as ArcaneDoor that they documented in early 2024. Do you remember who was this ArcaneDoor people and what is the connection?
Well, to be honest, there isn't much known about the ArcaneDoor operation. There's a few other names I think out there. One mentioned Storm 1849, I think it was. But I'm actually struggling to think what is the Mandiant name for this cluster of activity. I don't think they have one, if I'm not mistaken. But I hope that Juan can leverage some ChatGPT 5.9 premium for friends of OpenAI.
Violently
tell
typing
us.
Here.
Please correct me, but I don't think that Mandiant has a name for it. So actually, there's very little known about this. And the other thing which attracted my attention in this story was that there's such a difference between all these Cisco equipment. So it's important, like, to tell you this story. Like back in my days when I was in university, actually there was a Cisco laboratory there where people learned how to use this Cisco hardware, how to play with it, why it's superior. And I tell you that everybody who went out of that laboratory and went to work at some company, everyone was essentially um, they were how to say, they were worshiping Cisco hardware. Like that was the highest possible imaginable thing that you can get your hands on. Like even I've had friends who are treasuring 20 years old Cisco routers who they don't have the heart to sell them. Like, I mean, they're so good, like 20 years old hardware, and it still works perfectly, has no 0 days, have no vulnerabilities. Like it's just amazing, it's perfect. So that is the kind of the standard where people held Cisco back in the days. But I see that a lot of the new things, they are like Linux based, and I think that this opens the door to a lot more interesting things. So in particular, we're talking about this bootkit that affects the 5500-X series without the secure boot, which are in principle based on Linux. And I think that this makes it maybe a lot more friendly to threat actors than the old devices, which were considered, I don't know, impenetrable due to the lack of documentation, functions. And not only that, but the hardware itself was so limited that there was like almost no space for you to run your crazy backdoors. So the most sophisticated threat actors out there, they had to write backdoors that were like 3.4 kilobytes in size. And in those 3.4 kilobytes, they had to do all the man in the middle of SSL connections and so on, which was pretty amazing. But with this Linux-based devices, I think it opens a whole new world to threat actors, and they can do like rootkits, they can do all these sorts of things. And I fully agree with you that saying that, yeah, like all the devices, they pass their last day of support, or the last day of support is September 30,
In 3 days,
I was
2025.
staring at the
3
clock.
days.
I just kept
3
looking
days.
at the date. I'm like, oh,
So, like,
okay,
what
cool.
does that mean that on September the 30, you need to just take this out of your infrastructure, you throw it, and you buy a new
Yeah.
one? That's what it means, right?
That's the hardware refresh
When
cycle that they live on. Yeah.
we were like, again, in this, like in the old days, you'd go and what you learned was that you buy this thingy, like of course you need to sell a kidney for it and maybe your index finger or something, but then you have it for 20 years and it will work, come rain and storm and earthquakes and Russian drones and Chinese drones and snakes and whatever and the locusts, and it doesn't matter, it's still working.
The NCSC report that Juan mentioned talks about a Ray initiator persistent multi-stage bootkit that facilitates the deployment of Line Viper to the Cisco ASA devices without secure boot. One thing that's missing in all of this is victimology. Do we have a sense of like who the targets are, where the victims are?
I mean,
What
it
are
seems
they?
to be every fucking person that's running one of these appliances, which includes a lot of the government, right? Like, there's a reason the UK NCSC and CISA are both involved, and there's like probably 5 or 6 different US organizations that are kind of in the middle of this. But basically anybody who's running any one of these like 5500 version things might as well consider themselves popped. They may never know, because if they got a call from their friendly Cisco support person, they may have wiped them out.
Wiped it.
Frankly,
Yeah.
okay, so when we start
But
talking
the
about like
malware
how
is also doing a lot of this. The malware is also
yeah.
doing a lot of like just crashing and
on
disrupting itself.
purpose,
Yeah.
like they're
Yeah, yeah.
incredibly careful about like not only just not getting caught, but also not like leaving the thing there to get caught, right? When you read the thing, if you read it carefully, there's a line about how even tab auto completion will essentially trigger this thing to like remove itself. So you're like, if you go in there and type, you need to like very carefully single finger peck this thing, right? And not tab autocomplete. But we've been hearing about things like that, even in the reports of like coat hanger and things like that, where you would go, hey, if you try to use any of these tools that you would normally do to like dump a core or to kill a process or whatever, then the thing is just going to disinfect itself. And what it's speaking to is the platform discussion that we were having earlier. The issue here is there was no need to be that sophisticated on appliances. Now everybody's becoming aware that there's an issue with appliances, except the appliance vendors who are not interested in actually stepping up the security posture and capabilities and visibility of the appliance, the platforms themselves. However, there's more people paying attention to them. So the attackers are leveraging the fact that the platforms themselves are not becoming any more secure or capable or friendly to incident responders to then basically screw over any incident responder that tries to, because essentially what they're doing is like tamper proofing them, right? If you go in and you try to get clever, the thing is going to disinfect itself, and the platform itself has no mechanism by which you can actually do what you do. And I think this is one of those very interesting situations, more than the iPhone one that we usually talk about, because this is a giant fucking piece of hardware that you have sitting somewhere. And this is an area where, not in the existing ones, but given the production cycles, you can leverage the fact that you have physical access to these devices to provide different capabilities on the hardware than you would from a software perspective. You tell me that you can't secure the software, that it's just impossible, that it's just an old stack, or whatever the hell you want to do. But if you gave me a debug port on this thing, short of whatever sort of JTagging somebody's going to have to do to like go in there and pull stuff out of this device that you're not supposed to pull out of it. Like, there are ways that Cisco and other vendors could be providing greater capabilities to the people who own these things. They just don't they don't seem to care to. And part of it is that Microsoft versus Apple mentality of, well, let's think about security posture, right? Microsoft has spent 20 years fighting on security, sometimes fighting the security community, sometimes fighting the threat actors, but always fighting on security. Apple has done none of it, non-publicly for many, many years. What is the perception? Well, Apple devices are secure, Microsoft devices are completely insecure. I think you have a similar sort of takeaway from a lot of the appliance vendors and other like devices that don't currently have security as a topic of conversation or a topic of as a thing on the sheet when you go buy the product, and they go, well, we really don't want it to be put on there, so just shut your mouth. But I don't see how we can get past this short of having some other player come into the space and say, hey, I'll sell you a VPN appliance, you can inspect it and do whatever the fuck you want with it. And moreover, I'm going to facilitate you inspecting it as much as you want because these other people won't let you. Like, that seems to be the differentiator that's missing in the space. Because I do want all these people to feel it, right? Like, they're being irresponsible with their customers in a way that's literally screwing over national security. What is the boundary at that point?
Costin, what do you make of the NCSC report? Did you get Yara rules, IOCs? I mean, did you get some value from that document?
By the way, it's a huge report. Because of Virus Bulletin, I admit I didn't have the time to go like fully through it, but yeah, it has Yara rules, it has a lot of things. And it was interesting, by the way, that this week actually, I noticed there was a hit on VirusTotal for Line Dancer, and I was thinking like, Line Dancer, what's that? Like, I couldn't remember. I don't think that I've seen hits for Line Dancer in months, maybe ever, since I put the rule there. And I was thinking like, what is Line Dancer? For a moment, I was thinking, is it like related to Face Dancer, which is another thing that we're not gonna discuss now, and obviously should not be ever discussed because, yeah, it's too dark. But like, leaving Face Dancer to the side, but talking about Line Dancer, I was like, what is Line Dancer? So I wonder if someone is actually uploading some Line Dancer samples to VirusTotal. So one of the things I want to do is just to try to look a bit more into that, including with the Yara rules from the new NCSC report, but also with the old rules for Line Dancer. There should be some new samples on VirusTotal that hit this week.
I just wanted to bring attention to another thing. Is like, and we talked about this, Juanito. You and I have talked about this at length. Is whenever secure boot bypasses come up, they kind of get dismissed as, yeah, well, you already have physical access to the device, or you need admin access to do this. And some of the vendors try to say, well, if you have to use a screwdriver to do anything, then maybe it's not a vulnerability. But now you start to see why these secure boot bypasses and these bits of research are important. I just got to spend some time with Fabio from Binarly at LabsCon, and they were talking about like root of trust bypass in supermicro BMCs and doing some really incredible research. But they always seem to be minimized.
It gets downplayed. Yeah.
Downplayed is the word I'm looking for. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's funny because essentially what it all gets downplayed to is, well, we already have a solution for this, which is secure boot. So you should have secure boot enabled. And I think in this particular case,
but even there, it doesn't really matter because there are routine bypasses for all the modern flavors of secure boot.
That's the egregious thing about all of this being turned into, well, those don't have secure boot, but others have secure boot, so just have secure boot, and then we don't need to talk about this. You're like, well, it was the same malware that was being used without the, it was a similar malware that was being used without the bootkit loader. If you're telling me that secure boot just kind of handles the bootkit, what are we doing about the malware itself? What exactly is any of this sort of telling me that I'm supposed to, think more securely or comfortably or whatever about the in-memory toolkit that is being used to do all of this PCAP capturing, right? Like part of the issue in this operation, right? Like we keep talking about sort of the poor Cisco response and sort of the general chaos around it. But what makes this even more concerning is it's very similar, Kosin, if you remember, to how we worked on the Moonlight Maze stuff, where you had folks deploying sniffers on devices that were being used to have access, to have other organizations access, or to move from one org to the other. And part of the issue was that would enable folks to take those creds and then use that access to themselves pivot onto these other organizations. And you have a similar situation happening here with this, where these appliances are the malware is able to do PCAP captures. You're watching for other folks that are sort of that are connecting in there and then leveraging those connections however you want to move on to other places. So how do you assess whether you are the extent of the impact when it comes to this thing, when part of that problem is going to be how much it enables you to like traverse from one point to another beyond just whatever's infected with this particular piece of malware?
Just want to say one thing is that you may overlook the gravity, I don't know, the seriousness of these compromises, thinking like some Cisco device, like VPN device got compromised, that means nothing. In reality, based on what I've seen in my experience, the moment that this gets compromised, the whole thing is owned. Like it's game over.
Right.
Like from there to the main admin, it's a matter of hours, things like that. It's just game over.
Anything else on this report? I always get excited when the bootkit has been found in the wild. I think there's a lot more of this sitting around there. People just not looking, don't know how to look, don't have the data to sift through. And whenever I see a bootkit popping up in the wild that isn't like a university research project, I feel like, okay, we have a little more visibility. So from my standpoint, I mean, I'm grateful that Cisco and the NCSC was able to come out and say, hey, this stuff is happening. We know it's happening. There's an actor here caught doing it at scale. Fully patched this ASA firmware affected in enterprise networks. CISA shipping an emergency directive basically telling federal agencies, listen, rip or patch this thing immediately. So, I mean, kudos to them. I mean, of course it could be done better, but I don't know. Any meat left on the bones of these stories?
Kudos to the Chinese on this one. Well fucking played, guys. Some slick shit. Well done. We're all clearly a fucking mess on this side of the house. We're not doing anything to really stop or properly manage this. And I'd love for somebody to just run the census query that lets us know all of the US government, UK government, Canadian government, et cetera, organizations that are all popped with this shit. Because, you know, to see this kind of coordinated response coming out and a proper analysis coming out of these folks is because it's relevant to national security in a variety of different places. So I'm not giving Cisco any kudos anytime soon. They're not okay in my book, in Kosten's book, which I have borrowed. But more than anything, I'm just disappointed. I'm disappointed anytime our vendors stand with the threat actors in not allowing defenders to somehow improve the situation, right? Like that's when you're putting business bullshit over people's security. And I'm sad that the market doesn't provide some legitimate alternative or regulatory mechanism by which customers can be like, yo, what the fuck? But we don't forget, right? Like, people are still saying fuck Okta to this day. I will wait to see what happens with Cisco on this one. They were the chosen ones. They're not acting as the chosen ones. And if that's the case, then I don't know who's got a fledgling appliance business sitting around here somewhere, but please, for the love of Christ, get us off this carnival wheel.
I'm not gonna say I told you so, but I can mention this again. PF Sense. There are some interesting things out there. Like, do your research. This is like not me saying you should use something or something else, but again, there are things.
We have to do an entire episode on your PF Sense setup, because you keep like dripping it out.
But of course, you're moving from one drama to another drama. The drama of Cisco versus, I don't know, Ivanti Fortinet. You're moving to the drama of OpenSense versus PF Sense. That's
it. I don't believe I want to get into that world.
Dude, I want to see companies like Red Balloon and like Binarly and others that are doing low-level stuff just milk this situation. Like, I want some of the hardware RE folks and some of the low-level like UEFI folks to walk into these things and go, well, we're clever in a different way. We have other kinds of ODAs. Here's a little component to analyze this thing. Here's a physical whatever to analyze. Like, I would love.
They're available.
I would love to watch these companies turn them into a punching bag.
Yeah, but on top of that, I want to see vendors use their wallets and demand that if you want to sell to me, you show me a binary scan that has already made sure that all these things have been ferreted out. Like, people got to start, even if you don't have alternatives, you have to start demanding better your vendors on the very, very basics around, like, are you doing memory safety properly? Are you ferreting out known vulnerabilities before you ship a binary? Like, that's where that's where change comes, when people start voting with their wallets and you don't have elsewhere to go. So you have to start demanding better and using tools to get better at it. By the way, earlier in the week, before all this Cisco and this BRICKSTORM shit, the U.S. Secret Service announced that they had found a cached device. This was a big story. There were like 3 big, massive stories of the week. Discovered more than 100,000 SIM cards and 300 servers that could disable cell towers or be used to conduct surveillance. And it immediately was like kind of tacked on to the UN General Assembly happening here in New York City within 35-mile radius. Big news story, front page of the New York Times, front page of all the newspapers this week. Kostian, you believe this is just a generic cybercrime SIM farm?
Look, just I'm gonna give you the facts, because I think it's important to cut through the hype.
Hit us with the facts, son.
Let me hit you with the facts. First of all, there are hundreds of services out there that allow you to register a US phone number and receive SMSs to US phone numbers. And these services are actually extremely popular. Lots of people, me included, use them whenever
They're not
you need
illegal, right? They're not necessarily illegal.
Why would that be illegal if I buy a US phone number to register, I don't know, like an account somewhere? And security researchers, they use it for safety reasons. Maybe you don't want to give your phone number to all these websites, or maybe you need like a burner Gmail account, or I don't know, a Signal account. So they're used for all sorts of things out there. And many of these services, by the way, they're run by Russian-speaking people. Some are are actually run by Indians. I don't know if I've seen any run by Chinese. I think I've seen some South American operations. So they're incredibly popular. If you just right now you go to Google or your favorite search engine and you say get US SMS phone number, pay with bitcoins, something like that, you will find like easily a dozen of these websites that allow you to just leverage US phone numbers. So the fact number one is that these services are extremely popular. The fact number two is how do you actually achieve that? Exactly in this fashion, you run huge farms of SIM cards that actually, they're just registered to their US phone number SIM cards connected to systems which allow you to receive SMSs. Some allow you to receive calls. Some allow you to actually send SMSs, but those are more tricky. Typically, they allow you just to receive, but there are for sure others who allow you to even make VoIP calls, voice over IP calls. So these are again extremely popular. Now, if you ask me in regards to this story, the fact number three would be that they were spread within a 35 miles radius of the United Nations.
Do you know
And I
how
was
far
thinking
that
to
goes out?
myself,
All the way to freaking Connecticut.
35 miles, like obviously this is some American obfuscation, because
How
like
many
is it a
football
lot?
fields?
Like what is that? Like is it a lot? Is it little? I don't know. Is it like the size of Central Park in New York? Maybe Central Park is 35 miles. I don't know. Like what's a mile? But it comes to me like
What is a mile?
35 miles should be like 50 kilometers
Yes.
in the new world or the old world, if you want. Which
Old
is
world,
like
yeah.
seriously like on a range of 50 kilometers. So that means there's like all the SMS phone farms in the state or something like that. So maybe, if you ask me, with all these facts together, maybe they were not necessarily connected to the UN thingy or the, and maybe they were not necessarily planned. Like nobody creates an infrastructure of this size without some kind of a financial purpose in mind. So to me, if we just use like Occam's razor, what's the most realistic explanation here would be that this is one of the farms that you can rent through the internet to register for a US phone number. And actually, I think there's not just one, but it's several of them. So they just shut down a bunch of these different things. And the most likely evidence for that is the fact that each one of those, and we've seen like photos from the different locations, they all use different hardware. Like some are some phone motherboards, other are like more sophisticated equipment, other people they just have them laying down on the floor, other people have them in racks. So I think it wasn't just one thing, it was here probably a combination of multiple different things. They were mostly part of these either click farms or rent a US number style of operations that may have been and probably have been used for something bad. So the Secret Service said that someone was calling US government officials and threatening them from these numbers. Totally possible. I think that these guys were probably burned by whoever used their service for that, and maybe they were just trying to make an honest buck, and accidentally someone.
I don't know about an
Yeah.
honest buck. Come on, these are the dudes that are enabling all this
Semi-honest
pig
buck.
butchering shit. It's not.
Semi-honest
Yeah, I
buck.
like
Okay.
how I like how Costin says, security researchers use it for burner phones. Like this entire
Yeah.
ecosystem is built for crime. Let's be real.
Yeah, it's all for crime. It's all like the guys
What
are
do
like,
you
oh,
mean,
we
like-
also found 80 grams of cocaine and a
Cocaine
handgun.
and a couple of
You're
guns.
like,
Yeah.
okay,
Bill for crime. Wait a moment. Like the next thing you're gonna say is that Bitcoin was built for crime.
Sure. I mean, we've been saying that forever. The entire crypto economy is a crime economy. Quickly, this became a big mainstream news story because of the UN General Assembly and the Secret Service statement that's saying it could disable cell towers or be used to conduct surveillance. Can you use a click farm to do that?
how are you
Disable
supposed
cell
to do
phone towers?
eavesdropping with like this? I don't know. This sounds like Secret Service bullshit to me.
Move on.
No, I mean, yeah, but this. I mean, it just sounds like Secret Service bullshit to me. I don't understand how that's supposed to work. I'm glad you took down some like pig butchering enabling sim farms, and the fact that these things just like exist and are there waiting for you to take is a whole nother discussion in and of itself. But I'm just disappointed in the Secret Service. I'm like just looking at them
Yeah.
going, I guess you guys got some headlines. I don't know why you needed it. It's not the flex you wanted it to be. And I think anybody who understands how these things work or what criminal ecosystems are actually out there and active isn't looking at this as a win. They look fucking dumb. Like you can
Yeah.
put Matt McCool on the case all you want, but like the fuck, man? Like this is bullshit.
Oh, how am I going to register signal numbers now? I mean, seriously.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm in the middle of a phone call from one of these fucking farms right now. In my house.
Oh
Yeah.
dear.
Stop.
We're
Sorry.
an hour and a half in. We're an hour and
Thank
a
you.
half in, and we've barely touched on two of the stories. The other one I wanted us to touch on is Turla and Gamaredon. Is that how you say it? How do you say it?
Yeah, Gamaredon.
Some
Wait.
people call it Armageddon. Armageddon.
Well, Armageddon was
Armageddon?
the Armageddon, Gamaredon,
Dude.
or whatever. The
And
fucking
this-
traitors on that side.
The research out of ESET is basically positioning it as two separate Russian state-sponsored actors working together in recent intrusions against Ukrainian targets. I know we've all been busy. Costin, did you get a chance to read that report? Any significance to the fact that these
I
two guys
did.
maybe?
Yeah, what I thought was interesting, by the way, in the past, I think I've seen some reports in the past of people flagging some stuff as Gamaredon, and according, at least to my notes, that didn't look. It looked like Turla, and I was wondering what's happening here. Is this like a mislabeled activity? Is it actually Turla that people somehow put it under Gamaredon? So. What is interesting in this post is that they connect or tie these two things through malware deployment or like a tool deployment, which is always a bit more stronger connection than just infrastructure overlaps. So in particular here they discuss about Casuar being dropped. Now Casuar is still the one of the favorite tools of Turla, an evolution of their epic backdoor from the old days, rewritten in C#, .NET, with packed with obfuscators, using hacked proxies to communicate with the CNCs. This is still a very visible, significant threat, especially in Europe. We're still seeing a lot of Turla leveraging Casuar in Europe, as well as like Central Asia. That is mostly their favorite activity areas, together with Ukraine, of course. So I think it's a research that is worth reading and studying. But to me, it was interesting seeing these overlaps in the past, which I'm still not sure if it was misclassified Gamaredon activity, which was in reality Turla, or what exactly was the overlap.
Is
Why
it
is it important-
misclassified? Sorry. Go ahead.
Why is it important that we know that Turla and Gamaredon is collaborating? What's the importance of that?
I would say that previously these two groups, they didn't have to collaborate, if you want, in the sense that each one had their like goals. But probably, at least when it comes to things like Ukraine, it may be important to have some kind of deconfliction, like maybe one group manages to secure access and they pass it to another group, which is actually something we've seen a lot with Chinese groups, not so much with Russian groups, if you ask me. But obviously, I would say that Gamaredon were a group that didn't show the same level of sophistication as Turla. So it may be one of the lower tier groups. And the fact that they would be passing access or somehow, let's say, hand over the victim Turla, or maybe Turla would leverage Gamaredon to deploy their tools. I think that that's interesting in the sense that it means that even Turla, they need to somehow work with our with some other groups under the current situation. That means that things are getting tougher, if you ask me. The other alternative here, by the way, which also Isa described in the blog, is that and Turla is famous for doing that. They just take over other groups' infrastructure, right? They just sinkhole someone's CNC and they drop their stuff. And they've been doing it with Iranian groups. They've been doing it with cyber criminal groups, hijacking what was it, Andromeda malware CNCs. So another possibility here that Isat even also mentioned was that they just took over Gamaredon. They took over
Right.
Gamaredon to deploy their things. However, ESET doesn't give like a high confidence rating to that theory. In their opinion, it's more likely that they're somehow working together, and that wouldn't be that much surprising considering that in theory they're part of the same intelligence organization, the FSB. But nevertheless, the fact that they are collaborating, to me, it means that things are getting tougher. Like Turla didn't have to previously collaborate with anyone.
When you say
Of
tougher,
course,
meaning
it's harder for them. Yeah,
it's
things are
hard.
harder. There is, by the way, a very interesting handover thing here related to Turla, which is that around 2018, 2019, if I'm not mistaken, Turla started handing some of their victims in Europe to APT-29. So, which was always unusual, seeing Turla target all these Ministry of Foreign Affairs embassies around the world, when in theory, the FSB mandate, that's internal security, right? Their external security mostly goes to the SVR, which is commonly associated with APT-29. So their handover of these external victims to APT-29 was a very interesting
How do you know
thing in
that?
my. How
Like,
do I
how
know
can
that they
you?
were
Yeah, how do you? What is
handing
the
the victims over?
Yeah, what is the characteristics
Mm,
of seeing that handover for the folks in the audience who wonder? Like, how do you know
yeah.
that you? Like, what do you see that tells you that a handover
I
has
need
happened?
to be careful what I'm saying here. Obviously, NDAs and such lawyers involved, but I can say with a high degree of confidence that I was not the only one seeing it, and there are colleagues of mine working at other security companies, including some companies that write about collaboration between Gamaredon and Turla, that may have seen the same handover of victims between Turla and the APT-29. How? Very easy. Basically. Computers which had all these Turla backdoors on them, including things like Exchange backdoors or Outlook plugins used by Turla, they were suddenly converted to APT-29 toolsets, which included Cobalt Strike, multiple wrapped into PowerShell with like 4 or 5 levels of PowerShell around it for obfuscation, side loaded, and this transition happened all around the same time, kind of all over Europe in multiple entities. I think that probably there may be even some kind of public reports about the new APT-29 activities following Turla. But I can tell you that this is something which happened around 2018-19, and from that moment on, APT-29 kind of took over the foreign operations that were previously run by Turla.
So, I mean, I think that speaks to something bigger that's been happening in the Russian ecosystem. And I'm not casting any doubts on the research itself. Moreover, this is kind of, it brings me a certain amount of like shame and FOMO to feel like I'm out of the loop in a lot of this research. But if you remember, Kostin, um, with Tomiris, right, you had this shared implementation of the Kazuar crypto for some of this like SolarWinds adjacent stuff. And it was around the same time we started to have discussions about the fact that we had um, that there was an expected change in the Russian ecosystem to mimic what had happened in the Chinese ecosystem with the Strategic Support Force, where essentially cyber was supposed to get sort of unified in some way across the different Russian organizations. And at the time, what we kept saying is, well, we're not seeing it yet. And this keeps happening with the Russians where, they'll announce something and everybody that's like more on the intel analysis side starts looking desperately for it. They go, well, it's not there. And you go, yeah, it takes government organizations a few fucking years at least before you actually see some of these things pop up. And I'm wondering if that's what we're seeing now, or what we're starting to note now with that kind of lag, where operations that we have associated with APT-29, operations that we have associated with different parts of Turla or the FSB, right? So SVR, FSB, and perhaps even in some cases with GRU stuff, what we're seeing is like components shared in between, uses of different components by that we associate with given teams. Like my question would be essentially, how proprietary is Kazuar to Turla? Because
Mhm.
I don't see Turla comfortably share. This is my guess, right? My vibe for somebody that I don't know, and it's an organization that will, by definition, change. But I would be deeply surprised if the true old school heart of cyber espionage in Russia has decided that they're totally cool playing ball with the traitors in Crimea and the random guys under the presidential administration and SVR folks, and they're all just gonna kumbaya play ball. As opposed to you telling me that there's some shared toolkit based on a kind of strategic support force adjacent unification force across different Russian organizations in their MOD, and maybe Kazuar is this like ShadowPad adjacent thing or PlugX adjacent thing in the Russian ecosystem where you now have it being deployed and used by different folks. Like I would put that as my top investigatory line, followed quickly by, if that doesn't pan out, then are the cheeky guys in Turla just taking over Gamaredon ops because they see them as some lesser partner that they can just fuck with? And then I would investigate whether they're actually collaborating. Because to me, these are just intuitions, but I feel like there are other hypotheses here that I would want to check out along the way.
That's fair.
It's fair. It's fair. I can only say one thing here is that all the Casio chains that I investigated. What does it mean by chain? It means the Casio malware itself beaming to a hacked website, typically, which runs a bunch of PHP scripts that encrypt the traffic and forward it to another jump point, and that jump point typically goes into their CNC. So all the chains that I have seen, all of them were Turla. I have not seen a full Casio chain that was not Turla to date. Now, maybe in terms of individual samples, like Casio samples, I don't know, to be honest. But the full chains that I have seen, all of them, I can say with a high degree of confidence that they were Turla. And not only that, but for the past couple of years, they've been running the same public-private key infrastructure to encrypt the traffic into this. What's changed probably is how they access the CNCs. If you remember back in the days, Turla was using satellites, all sorts of funny things. So maybe that kind of changed nowadays. What I'm missing, like, would be cool if we would see like more Turla presentations nowadays, especially at conferences like LabsCon,
More
PivotCon.
Russia. Yeah.
More
Not
Russia.
necessarily just more Russian, but specifically more Turla. I
Why?
think that would be why. Because they're
A lot of meat.
fascinating.
You think there's still a lot of meat on the bones there?
They're fascinating, and the level of creativity, again, going back to those slides that also Juan likes to mention a lot, it's designed by geniuses. After all, Turla designed by genius. I don't know who operates it nowadays, but
Morons,
at least
apparently.
didn't want to say that. But yeah, would be interesting to see. Actually, I was thinking maybe to talk a bit about some new probably Turla related tool sets during my speech in London at Virtual Routes in October. So I think that yeah, I'll try to include some of that into the talk.
I may have for that binding hook event that we're both speaking. I may have some extra tickets. So if some folks are listening who are interested in joining us for Binding Hook Live, Max Meets' event for virtual routes, hit us up. I have a couple of tickets for some of our listeners. I see. I think Ryan's frozen and his internet dropped after Mac already fixed it. This guy's gonna lose his fucking mind. He's gonna
The
lose his
question
mind.
is, did Mac use PF Sans? That's the question.
That's an excellent question. We should bring
But
Mac
like,
on the pod for it.
could this be like it's not a software problem, it's an electrical problem, like or engineering problem, I don't know, physics problem related to permeability of space by electromagnetic waves. Yeah,
Ryan's
welcome
face.
back.
Welcome back, man. How you doing?
Yeah.
Let's
Hanging in. I get back to magnetic conversations. You guys go ahead.
we were trying to figure out what was happening with your Wi-Fi, essentially.
I had a VPN situation.
You see,
situation.
we were messing with Mac here. We were not giving him the credit he deserves.
No. Shout out, hey,
VPNs.
shout out to my man Mac who came and rigged out the house with like some high-end Wi-Fi gear. It should be operational now. I get in some VPN hiccups that I gotta straighten out, but otherwise.
Dude, if anybody's in a position in our side to like advise on building a better one of these fucking appliances, it's Mac. Like I'm like he's building much cooler shit. Like his startup's got some incredibly cool hardware.
Yeah, he was showing me.
and
He was giving me a demo here and some of the capabilities here. I don't know how
Dude,
much
I
I
was
can talk
looking at
about,
him.
but yeah.
I was looking at him. I'm like, this is fucking awesome, and you're solving a much more like a much bigger problem. But could you just step back and maybe just sell a VPN appliance? Like, fuck it. I
Yeah.
get that you're going for something more important, but the people need a VPN appliance.
All right, what were we talking about? Sorry.
No, you're good. We were continuing to talk about some of the Turla
Shout-outs.
Kazuar stuff. No, what do you mean? I thought this was a 4-hour episode. What
No,
do you,
no.
I cleared my whole
Oh.
Saturday for this.
It is late in the
Oh.
evening for Costin. He just got back from Berlin. He's trying to spend time with the family.
I
What
love
time
that
is
he's
it there,
making it
Costin?
about Kostin. Kostin, you're good, right? Like you're.
It's 8 p.m. on a
Um,
Saturday night. We're not gonna subject Costin
tell
to
you,
staying.
honestly, this COVID is either coming back or it's a cold that I got at the conference,
See?
which is
Let's
it's
save the
hitting
man a
me
little
again.
bit.
But yeah, like I still feel we need to speak more about this European disruptions, airport disruptions, because there isn't much known about this Heartbeat ransomware. I mean, did you guys know about Heartbeat? Is this like
I
a
had
name
never
that
heard
you're
of-
familiar?
No.
I had never heard of them before, and my thought when I heard about your disruptions and airports doing manual check-ins and people writing stuff on paper and it lasting for a whole week, I went back to our earlier thoughts about we diminish ransomware attacks as like a crimeware over there with people who are not patching their boxes and they deserve to be ransomed. And now you realize not only just hospitals and so on, like critical infrastructure. This is critical infrastructure. And the deterrence is not there. I feel like the deterrence is not there, and we'll continue to deal with these ransomware attacks almost forever until some of these people start getting facing some consequences. What's the vibe there in Europe around like ransomware in general?
Well, it's obviously like the biggest thing, and I think even in this story there are some nice lessons. So, from what I heard, Collins just reinstalled all their servers, so things were a bit better. But then they got reinfected again, and this is like one of the typical things that happen when you just, let's say, like, let's just reinstall everything without actually finding the reason, like why did you get hacked in the first place. And I've seen this kind of a behavior over and over with companies who are like, we're not going to pay anything, we're just going to reinstall everything and move on, restore from backup. And then you ask the question like, but shouldn't we find how they got in the first place? And like, we don't care, we're just going to patch everything, change the passwords and move on. And this is what happens when you move on. If you don't find exactly how you got popped in the first place, then you're just gonna get reinfected again, and it's gonna cost you more and more money. I saw that so far the cost of disruptions is reaching like $150 million
Do you think they should have paid
across
the
all
ransom?
the sector. No, for sure no.
Okay, I'm just
But
double checking. I'm just double checking like
no,
what your positioning of the alternative is.
my position is that you need to find, like, understand what happened. If you don't understand what happened, you're just gonna get infected again, and the bad guys are just probably gonna make fun of you. And I know that they arrested somebody in the UK. I don't know if they arrested that person for this or they arrested them for something else. Who knows? Like this like the amount of news coming out of UK these days is just crazy. Like digital ITs, I don't know.
No, you talk about
So
how
who
they get
knows?
in to do this ransomware attacks. It brings up an additional story we had on our list here, which is some court documents around some com arrests.
Ah,
Some
scare
com arrests. And when you
spider.
read, yes, when you read this entire court document, and then Bloomberg did an amazing job with a feature story on the kid in Florida who just got 10 years, spoke to his parents and talked about, they're fucking calling. They're calling and asking to get in. Like, this is how
Right.
they're operating. Most of it is just random SIM
Social engineer.
swapping, social engineering. These guys are very, very skilled at getting you to give them something from a support ticket and so on. There is no sophistication to any of this, and this is how all these fucking companies are being ransomed. Someone is calling and getting someone in support or someone somewhere to give them access to something, and before you know it, they're in your network encrypting things.
Well, think about what that entails, right? That means that you know, we make it sound extremely pedestrian, but the problem behind that is ACLs. Like, you know, what sort of controls do you have for like your customer support folks? Like most of, you know, the comm kids that got called out on this particular arrest, the ones you're talking about with what was it, Joubert and Owen Flowers. They, you know, this was like star fraud era comm, and it was a huge pain in the ass. They were complete, you know, assholes to the people that they were victimizing, but a lot of what they were hitting was business process outsourcing companies. So you're not just talking about, like, you can say that they're just calling, but really they're infecting the companies that do the calling, the customer support and calling shit for a bunch of companies, and those in turn are the point of entry and vulnerability for a lot of other bigger companies whom, you know, you don't just hire these folks to answer the phones. You hire these folks to answer the phones and then give them VPN access and some kind of capability within that company's environment so that they can do something with those phone calls, right? So you call them, you say, hey, I can't log into my whatever, Netflix, my video streaming service. I need you to reset my password, and they need to be able to do something with that. And that's where you really get into the heartache of it all, which is, in order to do that, what kind of access did you give this random person in the Philippines or in India or whatever that's answering the phone for $2 and may in some cases is being offered money. In other cases, they're being infected, they're being tricked. But the real issue from a security standpoint is, how have you architected this thing so that a bunch of random folks can make decisions and can make changes as far as customer accounts go? So,
but there's a big, giant, squishy soft spot in all our networks.
Sure.
If the entire supply chain is disrupted by someone with the ability to make a convincing phone call, I mean, how do you defend against that?
Zero trust.
Zero trust. Trust nobody.
MFA, everything, zero trust, all the things. I mean, it really is startling how many big companies are taken down by just simple social engineering. I don't want to call it simple because it's very skilled. A lot of it is These guys
social
are very,
engineering.
very skilled at it. Yeah.
And while on the topic of that, by the way, there's samples of Heartbeat version 2.0 and 3.0, easy to find. There's a story about Heartbeat version 4.0, but unfortunately no samples or no hashes. And I thought it was interesting. I think Cyber Reason has a blog talking about this new version of the Heartbeat ransomware. And they talk about Neshta packaging Heartbeat. Neshta is a worm, like a file infecting worm, like from the I don't know, early 90s or 2000s, when file infectors were still a thingy. So I thought it was like an interesting idea to package those together, but there's no IOCs. So if anybody has IOCs for that, please share them with us.
And with that, Juanito, hit us with some shout outs and let's close the show.
I mean, shout out to all the folks that made LapsCon amazing. Thank you so much to all the speakers, the sponsors, to everybody that came out to support. Impossible Conference keeps being pulled off, so I'm incredibly grateful to everybody involved. Also, Kosten and I mentioned this virtual routes event, Binding Hook Live in London. We'll both be speaking there. Hopefully we can drag Ryan out, though I don't know that he's dying to do some travel. But for those listening, our friends, if you hit me up, I may be able to get a couple of tickets your way. But we'll have some interesting talks going over there, and looking forward. I haven't been to the UK in a while, so maybe we'll go do Bletchley, Costin. We'll go explore the space a little bit.
And are you doing Offensive AICon as well?
I am doing Offensive AICon, actually. I will be at Offensive AICon next week. So I'm also excited for that. And just to it's another one of these sort of unofficial sister conferences, right? So from LapsCon, we get Offensive AICon, we get PivotCon, as our friends organizing, the Dreadnought folks who are organizing Offensive AICon.
State of Statecraft coming up as well.
Damn, there's a lot going on. So yeah, for those going to State of Statecraft, let us know how it is. It's the day after this Binding Hook event, so there's no way to kind of jump from one to the other properly. So we'll have to miss there, but I'm pretty excited to see how these play out. And when you mentioned Offensive AICon, it's one that I'm really hoping to just go and sit there with a notebook and actually learn some shit. Like I'm
attend
tired
the conference for a change.
I would love to attend the fucking conference and listen to some talks. And particularly when it comes to the AI stuff, I think there's still so much to learn from just how other people are doing things. Just shoulder surfing and going, look, I don't even care what problem you were trying to solve. Just show me what it was that you did, how it was that you did it. And I just want to sit there and learn. Like, I think the best thing, if there's any preview out of like my keynote at LapsCon, it's just, the best thing we can all do right now is just try to soak in as much of this stuff as possible, go home, and then figure out how we can start trying to solve some of our own problems with the new tooling involved. So that's what I'm going to be doing at Offensive AICon. And, folks, come up and say hi, please.
Before I give the mic to Costin to close this show, my shout outs go to all the folks wearing a TLP black t-shirt. You guys know yourself. Incredible piece of merch that, we're building scarcity at a level now where my head is exploding. And with that, Costin, close the show for us with some shout outs.
Shout outs to all the people who came to me at Virus Bulletin saying they love the show, that they are listening every week. Thank you for being our listeners. Thank you for the feedback. Also, shout outs to Nicole. Nicole was there. She had a speech on the C group or Z group, however you want to call it. Pasquale was there. Pasquale is launching his new platform, Rational Edge, and he was sporting a three-body problem hoodie one day and a TLP black t-shirt the other day. So you can't be more cool than that.
He's the coolest.
We need a crossover swag. That's what we need.
Well, Patrick Wardle, he's having his conference. I think it's in 2 weeks in
Ibiza,
Spain.
right?
In Ibiza, like Objective by the Sea in Europe.
Cool. That's cool.
It's gonna be like EDM.
Very cool.
Yeah, exactly.
EDM introductions.
He had a very cool talk also. So shout outs to Patrick and of course to all the other people I met at Virus Bulletin and hopefully we'll see some of them later this year at Virtual Routes, Binding Hook, or Countermeasure Conference in Canada, where we'll do a live show on stage and
In person
with-
for the first time, all
in
three of us are
person.
going to be in person for the first
Not
time.
not
so I'm
just the
looking forward to that.
cardboard costume,
Hey,
Oh,
but
that
the
cardboard
cardboard
costume was beloved. It has seen some stuff, man. We're gonna have
my
to.
favorite was the lemon tree costume. That was my favorite.
It was incredible. LabsCon was a blast. You were missed. A lot of the folk. What I did find out at LabsCon was that Costin is everyone's favorite buddy.
That's right.
Sorry,
Ah.
Juanito. I mean,
People were
everyone
depressed
is...
to see us without Costin.
Yeah. Good times. Good times.
Thank you.
We'll catch you guys next week. Have a great week. Peace out.
Bless you. Bye.